Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to one of the best known Swedish craft breweries these days, at least for you guys watching internationally. So we're going to head back up to Stockholm and we're having a taste of another beer from Omnipollo, and this one is another one of their famous Imperial Stout. So this one's called the Agamemnon. It's another iteration of the Agamemnon actually. This one is called Monster Shake and it's an Imperial Stout coming in at 12% ABV. This one was released on the 18th of January 2019 through the small partiers, and it's brewed with maple syrup, coconut, cocoa nibs, smoked bacon, coffee, almonds and vanilla protein. So yeah, a really interesting one. I believe the original Agamemnon was simply a maple syrup Imperial Stout, and I reviewed the bourbon barrel aged version of this for you maybe about a year or so ago, but that was a lovely beer, and you know, this is one that I'm very curious about. I always enjoy these big Imperial Stouts from Omnipollo because they can throw up some really interesting surprises. But as always, looking forward to this beer, and I hope you guys enjoy my take on it. I always enjoy reviewing these new stouts when they are released, and you guys watching abroad will probably see this this beer in a couple of weeks time. So yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Omnipollo before. No doubt I will add some more in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Omnipollo then, on to my brewery notes. So Omnipollo, as I've told you before, were founded back in 2011 by Henrik Fenty, who was a long-time homebrewer, and Carl Grandin, who is a clothing designer. But the two met one day and they decided to start a brewery together after they discussed the kind of insular craft beer scene in Sweden and further abroad. But they wanted to reinvigorate the craft beer scene in Sweden from both a stylistic sense and from a gastronomic sense. So they felt that the partnership between a home brewer and a designer was very logical, and you know, you have to say on both counts Omnipollo are quite distinctive in that they add a lot of kind of flavour essences into their beer and things like that you're not going to find other brewers doing, and of course the artwork is pretty damn unique as well. But the name of the brewery is derived from omnipotent chicken, so Omnipollo, pollo of course Spanish for chicken, and these guys are gypsy brewers, so they have no breweries of their own and they brew at a variety of other host breweries. Mainly they brew their beers at the De Proef Brouwerij in Lokris de Heefte in Ghent, just outside of Ghent in Belgium. That's where they brew the likes of Nebuchadnezzar and Leon, which are their bigger volume beers, and they also brew a number of their big Imperial Stouts at the Dugas Brewery as well, which is very nice. But they brew many collaboration beers as a result of this as well, and they're currently exporting to somewhere between 30 and 40 different countries worldwide, and they're constantly expanding. I mean, you can get these beers over in Australia and New Zealand now, you can get them in the States, I think you can get them down in South America as well, and I'm pretty sure you know, you can get them in Japan and Hong Kong and things like this in the Far East as well. So yeah, they've expanded a hell of a lot since I've moved to Sweden as well. And if you want to try some of the more unusual Omnipollo beers here in Sweden, you can check out the Omnipollo's Hat, which is a little pizza beer restaurant up in Stockholm. That's somewhere that I really do recommend that you have a look at. But you've got some awesome pizza there, some really interesting beers, and the one thing I'll say about this brewery as well is they are of course famed mainly for their Imperial Stouts, but they're you know, I say they add flavour essences to their beers, but at the same time they're also very good at you know, doing straight up beers as well. If you try the likes, I don't know, the name of it's gone right out of my head, Fata Morgana, that's a really lovely New England IPA. The Nebuchadnezzar is a beautiful West Coast IPA, and you know, they've done a few things like Outside the Lines, which was a very straight up Imperial Stout. They did that with Trillium, of course, from over in America, and their straight up beers tend to be very good as well. But brewing, a lot of purists, I guess you would say, about Omnipollo, they would say, you know, it's not quite pure brewing, if you like, because of the flavour essence. But I think finding the perfect base beer to actually complement these flavour essences is a little bit of an art in itself, and they have proved that they can do the straight up beers too. So a very, very interesting brewery, and when it comes to Swedish craft beer, probably one of the best known ones these days, and I highly, highly recommend that you check out their beers should you get the chance. So yeah, let's leave it at that for the brewery just now. If you want to learn a little bit more, check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and things like that, and you can keep up to date with all the latest goings on there. So let's get on to the tasting of this beer itself then. So like I mentioned, this one is a 12% Imperial Stout. You can see it's got some of this very typically interesting Omnipollo artwork. Like I said, the Agamemnon, the original Agamemnon from what I understand, was just maple syrup Imperial Stout, but this one seems to be another iteration. They've, there's been Agamemnon Coconut, there's been Agamemnon Bourbon Barrel, probably a couple of other ones that I've not tried before. But this one, they're calling this is the Agamemnon Monster Shake, and it's brewed with maple syrup, coconut, cocoa nibs, smoked bacon, coffee, almonds and vanilla protein. This one comes in at 12%, the original was 12.5 or 13% if I remember correctly. I think the one that I had that was bourbon barrel aged was maybe around 13 and a half. But yeah, lovely beer this one, and we'll see how we get on then. It should be an awesome beer. So without further ado, let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting. Very curious to see what Omnipollo have thrown up for us this time. And this particular beer, I should mention, was actually brewed at the Prof Brewery in Locriste Hefte in Ghent in Belgium when I was looking it up on Untappd earlier. But yeah, this is supposed to be an absolute monster, and you can see that straight away on the pour. Absolutely no head on this thing, but maybe if we sugar it up a little bit, we will actually get something out of it. But yeah, lovely looking beer this, and you can see it's this one. It's not as oily. I think this one's actually a little bit wetter in terms of its appearance than some of the other ones that I've had from Omnipollo before. But you can smell. I tell you straight away, you can smell the almonds and a little bit of the coffee coming out of this one. It looks, it just looks like oil or something like that. Water, oily water. It's an absolutely lovely looking beer. If I hold it up to the light, definitely a very, very dark ebony kind of rosewood colour here. It's not quite a pure sort of black, it's not an absolutely pitch black, it's definitely got a kind of rosewoody kind of tint to it, but a very, very dark beer. This one, you can see zero head on it. It had a little bit, even if I sugar it up a little bit, there's absolutely no head coming to the fore on this one, and that's maybe just because of the high alcohol content in this one, or maybe the carbonation. Maybe it's not going to actually have very much in the way of carbonation. But yeah, it looks absolutely lovely. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see very little transparency to this beer, but I think that's simply due to the colour of it. I'm sure I read somewhere that the original Agamemnon was boiled for like 7 or 8 hours, something like that. So, it's if you boil a beer like that, you're going to get a very, very dark wort, and that's one of the ways that you actually can influence the colour of beer. Of course, it's down to the actual malt varieties you use to some degree, but at the same time, if you do a longer and longer boil, it makes the sugars kind of congeal, and it makes the mouth feel a hell of a lot thicker, and I believe that's what a lot of these breweries actually do with their big Imperial Stouts. So you can boil them for a lot longer than an hour, as you would do with like IPAs and things like that. But yeah, absolutely lovely looking beer. There's some awesome aromas as we opened it up. Let's take a closer look at that aroma then and just see how we get on. Oh, this is just ridiculous. If you know Omnipollo, I think you kind of know what you're going to expect from this one. To me, this one's really leaning towards the nutty side of things. It smells like a very, very kind of nutty brownie, or a very sort of, it almost smells a little bit like a very kind of nutty variant of Kladkaka or something like this. We can get rid of the brewery notes now. But yeah, it almost smells like a very nutty version of Kladkaka, something like that. But the almonds are coming out nicely. You can smell a little bit of that coffee underneath. The coffee's just almost like a little bit of a kind of subtlety. I don't know. I don't pick up much of the way in the meatiness from the bacon, if you like, but there is a little bit of a smoky quality to it at the same time. It's almost a little bit like the Rauch beers, like Schlenkerla from Germany. It almost has just a little tiny hint of that, and it's mixing with the coffee. The coffee comes across as being quite roasted and very smooth, but also A little touch of earthiness to the coffee, I would say, as well. I've said this about a number of coffee stouts recently. I'm no expert on coffee, but adding coffee beans to a beer adds a huge amount of complexity to the aroma, because you've got all the complexities of the beer itself, but then the complexities of the coffee bean also come out as well. But yeah, a little bit of a meaty note mixing in with the coffee there. The coffee itself is a kind of earthy, very, very roasty coffee, I think. But there's also, there's a lot of nuttiness coming out of this one, but you can definitely pick up the chocolate and the vanilla. Everything in this beer is just kind of merging together. It's a very, very sweet aroma in terms of an Imperial Stout, this one. But again, this is what you expect, and you know, Omnipollo are very, very well known for these big these big sweet Imperial Stouts, but at the same time I have had one or two roasty ones from them, and they've always done very, very well. I should just let you have a little look at the name of this one. You should always do that with these Omnipollo beers, because it's quite subtle and hidden from the artwork mainly. But this is a lovely smelling beer, this one. As I always say, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. There's a hell of a lot going on in this one. And you know, it's just about how everything goes together. The one thing I'm not picking up too much of is the coconut, but I think maybe it's just my nose. There's a whole host of other things going on in there that you kind of focus on a little bit before this. But without further ado then, let's have a taste of this beer. This one is the Agamemnon Monster Shake iteration, coming in at 12% ABV, one of the small parterre beers on the 18th of January 2019. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål. Oh yeah. What I'll say is, to me, this one comes across as being a little bit lighter in the mouthfeel compared to some of the other Omnipollo stouts that I've had before. It's definitely nowhere near as oily and things like that. This one's definitely a little bit more wet in terms of its mouthfeel, and it comes in and it's got quite a dark flavour in the beginning, but just almost like that, it just switches to be a very, very kind of sweet, just a big sweet, smooth sweetness in the middle of your palate. It's an absolutely beautiful beer, this. Make no mistake, it's not surprising. These guys know what they're doing when it comes to Imperial Stout. So this one, I will say, this is as good quality as some of the other ones that you're going to get. A lot of these big Imperial Stouts from Omnipollo, people argue about which one's the best. I think it's really down to personal preference. Beer is subjective, different people like different things, and to me, this is very nice, but it's definitely different from the other version of Agamemnon that I've had before. But yeah, this is really nice. I mean, you can feel with this one, in the centre of your palate, you can feel there is a little bit of a roasty black bitter malt there just pushing its way out, but it is the coffee bean. It's the coffee bean sweetness that's really forming the kind of baseline of this beer. The almonds are in there, so you come a little bit, if we stick to the centre of your palate, the big chocolatey malty qualities there, they're kind of gathering around the centre of your palate, and the vanilla's mixing in with that. But when you come further forward along your tongue, it's the almonds, the almond nutty flavours are coming out a little bit more towards the front of your tongue, but all of that is just sitting on top of that lovely kind of very, very smooth coffee base. The whole thing with this beer, it's just coming together absolutely lovely. And if you just go around the front curve of the palate, if you just go in behind that a little bit, for me that's where the coconut is coming out of this one. And pretty much, with this beer, there's nothing kind of overly surprising about this one. If you read what's in it, these are the kind of flavours that you will get out of it. It's just a case of where they actually come out on the palate. But like I said, I think this one starts off with a little bit of a dark roasty flavour, and then very, very quickly after it crosses the tongue, it starts to become very, very sweet. But this is a beautiful, beautiful beer. So if you like these big stouts, I'm trying to think, if you like the Yellow Belly, if you like the Agamemnon, if you like the Hypnopompa, that's one that I still need to actually review on the channel for you. If you like these big Imperial Stouts from Omnipollo, you are certainly going to enjoy this one for sure. Yeah, this is really, really nice. It's definitely... it really, the way the bacon, it's almost weird, like if you go in from the front edge of your tongue, it's almost like you've just got like a horseshoe kind of shape. If you just go in from the very, very edge of your tongue, At the front corners of your palate, you've got a little bit of that, the coconut there, like I was describing earlier, but when you go further back along the sides of your tongue, I think that's where the smoky kind of, it's almost like a salty, smoky character actually. You can just feel that meatiness just inside from the back edge of your tongue. The edge of your palate, of course, in the back corners of the palate, there's a little bit of an earthiness in there, and some of the little elements of a roasty, the roasty black malts that they've got in this one, and also that kind of coffee base that the beer has. That builds a good bridge there, but the earthiness from the hops really is very, very smooth, and it just spreads out and goes further forward towards the front of the palate, and you can still detect some of that nice earthiness around the front curve of your palate, although I would say there is a little hint of some grassiness in there as well, which is really nice. But yeah, it's when you go behind the front curve of the palate, you do have a little element of a red kind of fruity ester to this one. It's almost got I don't think it's quite blackcurrant, it might be more of a sort of blackberry or something like that. There is a little bit of that in there. There's maybe a little touch of a kind of figgy note in there too, but yeah, there is just a little element of a red fruity juicy character on the very tip of the tongue. There's not really a kind of plummy or raisiny note coming out of this one. Where everything, as I say, this beer is all about where these different flavours come out on the palate, and there is some very interesting things going on here. Like I say, roasty kind of coffee malt base, the sweeter chocolate and vanilla notes, the cocoa nibs and the vanilla protein coming out in the middle of your palate. When you go further forward, that's where you're getting the kind of, right in the centre of just towards the front actually, that's where you're getting the almonds, and then there's a little bit of that, as I say, you've got a little bit of the coconut just kind of inside from the palate there, and the sort of salty, smoky notes from the bacon are coming out a little bit further back, just in from the side of your palate too. This beer, there's just a hell of a lot going on in it, and the really good thing about Omnipollo is, when it comes to these big complex imperial stouts, they always have a way of just working very, very well, and this is another one that they've done a hell of a good job with, and it's amazing some of the flavours that they can actually get into beer, but also make the beer work at the same time. So another big thumbs up to Omnipollo for this beer. They've done a great job of this one, but it's definitely quite different to the other big sweet imperial stouts that I've had from them before. So don't just think, alright, it's another one of these. This one is quite a bit different from the others, so have a go at it for yourself and just see what you think. It really is very, very nice. In comparison to the others, I think this one is maybe a little bit darker. It's not quite as sweet as the likes of the Noah or the Yellow Belly and stuff like that. This one is a little bit darker and more roasty. It's got a little bit more of that kind of straight up style to it, if you like. And as I say, these guys are very good at doing the kind of straight up purist beers, if you like, but they're also very good at adding adjuncts to the beers, and also finding the correct base beer to blend with these flavour essences that they put in them too. I'm not sure how, I'm just trying to think about this, how many of these beers, how many of the ingredients in this one will be flavour essences. I mean, I guess the maple syrup would probably be genuine. I guess the cocoa nibs and the coconut would be. The smoked bacon, I could see them using, I could guess that they would use flavour essence for it. The coffee and the almonds and the vanilla protein, I think they're probably, I would think that probably they are genuine as well. So I think this one is a little bit more straight up, but I think with the smoked bacon, maybe just for the sake of ease, they might have used a bit of flavour essence for that one. But I'd be curious to know that actually. I think as I say, I don't think it's much of a secret anymore that Omnipollo use these flavour essences, but they're very, very good at getting the flavours to come out. The one thing I should mention in this beer that I haven't mentioned too much about in the flavour was actually the coffee. And as I say, the coffee note in this one for me, the coffee base that this one has, it's a little bit, I don't know if it's correct to say that it's like a mocha. As I say, I don't really drink all that much coffee, but it really has that very, very smooth character to it. It's almost like a milky chocolate. It's mixing very, very much with these sort of cocoa nibs, and with the cocoa nibs and the vanilla flavours. It's a very, very smooth coffee. It's got a little bit of a roastiness to it, but it's got a little touch of an earthy note in there as well, which suits the hoppy side of the beer as well. But again, I'll just reiterate, this is an absolutely beautiful beer, and it's quite different from the other big sweet imperial stouts that you're going to find from Omnipollo. So a big thumbs up to them once again. They've done a great job with this beer. In terms of the mouthfeel, This one's at the lower end of full bodied, maybe at the top end of mid bodied. It's somewhere around that kind of range. By comparison to the other ones, the mouthfeel in this one is not as thick. This is a slightly wetter mouthfeel in this one in comparison to the more oily things you get from the likes of Noah and from Noah and Yellow Belly and things like that. But at the same time, a beautiful, beautiful beer. Carbonation's very smooth. The mouthfeel is a little bit wetter, as I said, overall. Nice little bit of hoppy bitterness, but it's not going to blow your head off in terms of IBUs. This one I'd be surprised actually if it's got any more than about 20 or 30 IBUs in it from the hoppy side of things. Lovely balance in the malt base between the roastiness, the sweetness, and I guess you could also say there's a little bit of that kind of the coffee side of things going on there. It's got a little bit of kind of all three things that you would expect from the Imperial Stout. It's got a little touch of saltiness there from the bacon as well, which is quite nice, but that's kind of minimal. That's a very, very subtle edge to the beer. And it's also got a little touch of a kind of juicy red fruit towards the front of the palate as well. But overall, as I say, another beautiful, beautiful beer from Omnipollo, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. So if you enjoy these big Imperial Stouts, have a go at this one. Just be aware that it is a little bit different. That, of course, might make it interesting to you. But it's been very, very cool to review this one for you, and I hope you've enjoyed my take on this one. So this one is the Agamemnon Monster Shake iteration from Omnipollo, brewed at the Proefbrouwerij in Locriste in Ghent in Belgium. Just a lovely, lovely beer, this one, and I'm really glad that I was able to try this. So if you still have some of these available to you through Systembolaget, I highly recommend that you try and pick this one up, because it's quite different from what they've done before. But let's leave it at that for this one. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this one in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Omnipollo as well, and I'm sure I'll return to these guys in the very, very near future. Make sure you check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys very soon. The Agamemnon Monster Shake from Omnipollo, one of the gypsy breweries here in Sweden, based up in Stockholm. Slange just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Skål.